Hey guys, what's up? It's your boy T for 365 Horror, and this is a horror movie discovery channel. I am just here to put as many horror movies on your watch list as possible. And in today's video, we are going to be looking at 7 brand new releases for you guys to watch and stream today. So let's get into it right now. Now we are going to get into the video, but before we do, I've got to remind you guys to please like and subscribe if you like this content. Also, this video is best watched with a movie tracker. I like to use Letterboxd. It's just the easiest way to keep track of the movies that you've seen and want to see. I also want to touch on the availability of these titles, as I have personally verified that each of these movies are released and available on the services that I've mentioned. If you aren't seeing them, then there's probably one of two reasons. One, you might be region locked. And the other reason I can think of is because a lot of these movies were just released yesterday, so if you're using one of the alternative media sites or one of the free sites, they may not show up for a couple days. And lastly, this is just a preview. These are not reviews and recommendations. I have always included timestamps and chapters in the description, so if you don't like the trailer reactions or any of the movies that I'm covering, you can always skip to the next one. And if you did want some reviews and recommendations, I suggest you watch my review series, my You Should Watch series, or any of my movie list series. This here is just a little something for the diehards like me that are always looking for something new to watch. And with that, let's get right into the video. The first movie we're going to cover this week is a horror sci-fi comedy called Glowzies, and this movie's available on Tubi.
You notice how they're glowing?
It's really clever.
Glowzies, they're coming to get you.
A group of aging military vets and social influencers battle glowing, vomit-spewing zombies in this zany, family-friendly horror adventure. It is directed by Hank Braxton. Okay, so after watching the trailer for Glowzies, this looks like a good, fun-for-the-family zombie horror. Now, when it comes to the creeps and scares, I didn't really see anything that made me think there would be a ton, especially not in the trailer. Now, when it comes to the gore in this flick, again, it is family-friendly, so I'm feeling like we're going to get a lot of this, like, slime gore, which is what a lot of these monsters are made of. So I could see it having, like, a little bit of a gross element in kind of a booger kind of way. Now, the stuff that was practical in the movie wasn't exactly the worst, but some of the CGI stuff really did look kind of hokey. Now, when it came to the character and the production of this film, it did look pretty decent, and while nothing was really bad with how the characters were played, I didn't really find any of the humor really chuckle-worthy. Now, the story of this one is pretty run-of-the-mill. You just have some sort of slime or zombies or some slime creature infecting people and them just terrorizing the town, so you're really not going to get anything too deep here. Now, Glowzies looks like a decent family-friendly movie with some cartoon gore, but for me and my kind of more extreme or serious tastes, I just found that the movie looked a little too zany and subpar personally, so unless I hear something really good, like there's more maturity than we see, I think I might have to skip this one on my watch list.
It's an alien element, not from this world.
This stuff has gotten loose.
Woken up.
Technically, sir, it's gotten loose.
Correct. But theoretically, it's woken up.
Gentlemen, this situation is a bit of a tight taco.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a horror mystery sci-fi called Time Cut, and this movie's available on Netflix. A high school student accidentally travels back to 2003 and decides to stop the serial killer who murdered her sister. It is directed by Hannah McPherson. Okay, after watching the trailer for Time Cut, this looks like a meh to decent time-jumping serial killer horror. Now, it seems like they're really going on a run of releasing some horror movies for younger audiences because, I mean, it is Halloween, so you want some family-friendly stuff. But from what I saw in the trailer, I didn't really think any of the creeps and scares really seemed that potent. Now, when it came to the gore, I did see a preview of one of their kills, and even though it was just kind of some cuts with blood, I have to admit, again, for the family-friendly kind of feel of the movie, it was more gore than I expected. Now, when it came to the characters and the production of this movie, it definitely had a decent look to it because you could tell it had a little bit of a bigger budget, and the character acting was just okay. Now, when it came to the story of this one, it was nothing new, but I have to admit that one of the major trigger points of this movie is that when she goes all the way back, she goes back to 2003 with wheelie shoes and Ugg boots, two things that I was both too old for, even at the time they came out. So basically at this point, movies are throwing back to times when I was already an adult. No. 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 Now, despite all that, this looks like a good teen horror, a good one for the family on Halloween. But again, for my Terrifier type gore tastes, this one just seems like you would have to have someone who already kind of is part of that younger adult audience to really enjoy this one. So I think I'm just going to give it a lower priority on my watch list.
I never got to meet my sister. They say you can't change the past, but what if you could? What is going on?
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a drama horror called The Substance, and this movie is available on Mubi and VOD Digital. A fading celebrity takes a black market drug, a cell-replicating substance that temporarily creates a younger, better version of herself. It is directed by Coralie Fargeet. Okay, before we get into this one, full disclosure, I have actually seen The Substance, and I thought that this was a pretty good body horror. Now, you don't get many creeps and scares when it comes to the film, but it is a drama horror for sure. Now, when it comes to the gore, there's actually quite a bit of gore kind of throughout, like just little parts, and it's pretty raw, but you definitely get a crazy amount of grossness when it comes to the third act. Now, when it comes to the characters, you get a really good cast in this film. Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, and Dennis Quaid are all really good in the cast, and they all give excellent performances in this film. Now, when it came to the story of The Substance, I actually thought that it was really good as well. Now, the commentary on modern beauty standards in this one is scathing and witty and almost feels cruel, especially when they cast Demi Moore, who is in fact a extremely beautiful aging starlet. So I'm wondering, when they cast her in this role, she plays it so well, if maybe it hit a little too close to home. Now, I will say one of the drawbacks of the film to me is that they really could have cut it back by about 20 to 25 minutes, because it does feel just a tad bit draggy in the third act. But at least it really picks up again at the end, and we get this crazy, frenetic, just disgusting end that really does kind of hit hard. Now, this one is more for the drama horror fans, as it is more focused on the characters and story, but there is just such a dark overtone. Even though you don't get the overt creeps and scares, it's almost draped in a dark reality that really does await us all. Now, if you don't mind a good drama horror that at times could be a bit of a slower burn, then I think that The Substance definitely deserves a regular to higher priority on your watch list.
Have you ever dreamt of a better version of yourself? Younger, more beautiful, more perfect.
Next movie we're going to look at is a straight horror called Amityville, Where the Echo Lives, and this movie's available on VOD Digital.
Amityville, Where the Echo Lives.
When Heather, a paranormal investigator, has to confront a terrorizing dark entity that is haunting a beloved neighbor's home. It is directed by Carlos Ayala. Okay, after watching the trailer for Amityville, Where the Echo Lives, this looks like a bit of a meh supernatural horror. Now, when it comes to the creeps and scares, this is a supernatural story, so it does look like they are trying to kind of add some sort of creeps and scares into the film. I just didn't think that any of them overall looked very effective. Now, it could have a couple of jump scares in the movie and a couple of little minor creepy parts with some ghosts or banging, but nothing that will really probably stick with me. Now, when it comes to the gore in the movie, I really don't think there's going to be any in this film. Now, the character work looked okay and competent enough, but I didn't really see anything deep here or anything that will really intrigue me or pull me in. Now, when it came to the character work, it looked okay and competent enough, but I didn't really see anything deep here. And when it came right down to it, some of the scenes did feel a little bit wooden in the dialogue and the acting. Now, when it comes to this one, it really does just look like a run-of-the-mill ghost story. And I mean, although it built a little bit of mystery, again, there was just nothing deep enough or nothing good enough thematically to really grab my attention. This movie is definitely PG-13 and feels it, so it's going to get a little bit of a lower priority on my watch list.
I'm Heather West, paranormal investigator.
She claims to talk to the dead.
Hello?
I think I have a ghost in my house.
I just need to investigate a few things.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a straight horror called He Sees You When You're Sleeping, and this movie's available on VOD Digital.
Merry Christmas. I hope you'll rot in hell.
Chester returns to his home after witnessing his parents' murders 17 years ago, by a killer dressed as Santa. And now, a new Santa killer begins killing his relatives. Chester questions if the killer returned or if a more terrifying truth exists. It is directed by Charlie Steeds. Okay, so after watching the trailer for He Sees You When He's Sleeping, this looks like more of a meh to decent Christmas slasher. Now, when it came right down to it, this one just looks light on the creeps and scares, but I can't really put beside it that you may get some escape tension or a jump scare or two. Now, while I came to the gore, I only saw a little bit, and although it wasn't really cutaway kill scenes, which I hate, especially in a slasher, it did just seem a little bit tame, but there is probably going to be a little bit of blood in this movie for sure. Now, when it came to the characters and acting, honestly, it seemed like about on par with the Amityville movie. Now, I saw some authenticity when it came to the fear, but a lot of the dialogue just felt very deliberate and wooden. Now, the story again for this one is definitely run-of-the-mill, some sort of psychotic maniac seeking revenge on this dude's family, only dressed as Santa. Now, when it comes to these slasher horrors, I definitely watch them for the delicious kills, and when I just see so little kill variety and such a scant amount of blood, it really stifles any interest I have for the movie. He Sees You When You're Sleeping might have a couple of little good elements, but really for me, it's going to get a lower priority on my watch list.
Christmas Eve is a very dangerous night. It's the one night of the year that Santa can let himself into your house.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a horror western named Unnatural, and this movie's available on VOD Digital.
Go to hell.
A gunslinger on a mission from God must track down supernatural creatures as penance for his past sins. It is directed by Whit Whitman. Okay, after watching the trailer for Unnatural, this looks like a little bit of a meh western vampire horror. Now, when it comes to the creeps and scares in this film, it definitely seems like an action horror, so we may get a couple of jump scares, but I wouldn't be surprised if we just got no creeps or scares in this film. Now, when it came to the gore in this movie, it might be alright, as it is a vampire film, so you always get a bunch of kind of blood, but I didn't really see anything other than that kind of gore in the trailer. Now, the acting and the production definitely looked better than the last couple of movies we covered, but nothing really to write home about. Now, while the story seemed okay, I did see vampires, cowboys, gunfights, ghosts, so I am kind of afraid that this movie is going to end up being all over the place, and even in the trailer, I felt like it might just lack a little bit of direction. Now, add into the mix that the vampires just looked okay, because that is kind of easy to do, just fangs on teeth. The ghosts were totally CGI, and they just did not look good. Now, the only interesting tidbit that did kind of interest me about the movie is that we just don't see very many horror westerns, and I really did wish that there was just a little bit more gripping me about this one. Now, if you want to hear some cheesy western lines and watch some six shooters shooting ghosts and vampires, this one might be a fun little romp for you, but for me, unless I hear something good, I may have to skip this one on my watch list.
Your town has a problem.
And what is that, Mr. Remington?
Your town has vampires.
Last movie we're going to take a look at is a horror mystery named Portraits, and this movie is available on VOD Digital. Portraits is a modern-day adaptation of Carmilla, a female vampire story that takes place in present-day Los Angeles against the backdrop of a burlesque and Victorian death photography. It is directed by Stephanie Paris. Okay, so after watching the trailer for Portraits, this one looked like a meh to decent vampire film. Now, the impression that I got from the trailer is I don't think we're really in for very many creeps and scares. Now, when it comes to the gore, just like the other vampire movies this week, I could see a lot of vampire gore, but nothing really in the trailer or anything that I could see being over the top or extreme. Now, the production and acting in this one, again, was a little bit better than the movies before it, but still, it just wasn't enough to really grip me. Now, while the story seemed alright, I just didn't see enough originality to really latch onto. And it really does feel like we're just going to get another run-of-the-mill vampire tale. Now, Portraits might look alright if you want more of kind of a CW young, sexy vampire feel. But again, in the end, this film just felt very, well, CW. Now, while Portraits seemed decent and watchable for sure, it was nothing that really grabbed my attention. So I think, while I am going to add it, it is going to get a little bit of a lower priority on my watch list.
Do you know what this stands for?
Sanguinarian. It was an order, only women, but it's been dead over 100 years. Where did you get it?
It's a family heirloom.
You're from a family of vampires?
Well, guys, that's going to do it for another episode of brand new releases for you guys to watch and stream. Thank you so much for joining me, and if you did find a couple of gems to add to your watch list, please leave me a like and subscribe. Now, if I had to pick a couple of movies this week, you could definitely see that spooky season is over and the choices are limited. So the first one I'm actually going to go with just because of the productions and seemed okay, and that is the film Time Cut. I just thought it looked kind of interesting and witty. It's kind of a cutesy little movie. I do like time travel stories, even though this one looks run-of-the-mill. It's very Back to the Future. You know, if you change the events, you're going to ripple time. But I do kind of like that time ripple effect. I usually like the after effects, like when the movie's over and they go back to their original time and there's like all these little differences. Those can kind of be funny and entertaining. So if I had to pick two movies this week, Time Cut would be one. And the other movie I'm going to pick in this week, in kind of a small, slow week, is definitely The Substance. I think this movie was actually a really good drama horror. I loved the acting in it. Again, it just had a lot of good elements, super high production, great cinematography. Again, the cast was great, and I really did like the story. Like, aside from it kind of getting a little bit draggy near the end there, it really does keep you engaged, and you're just dying to see how she's really going to kind of mess up this transformation. Because, I mean, let's face it, it is a horror movie, so you know she's going to mess up the transformation. Well, guys, that's going to do it for me, and if you made it this far in the video, I want to thank you so much. I appreciate you. I have got to get out of here as usual, as I have got a ton of movies to watch. I hope you guys have been good and taking care of yourselves, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.
If you go in there, you're going to die.
Probably.